afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another bout of Propagandacast news with me, your favourite newscaster, Imperial Dane, the one, the only. And we got ourselves a new update for the December balance preview patch right here at the end of the week, and boy is that one a big one. First off, we got the commanders. They're going to revamp. There's 8 about them, and for the most part they pretty much all make sense. You got mechanized and recon support for the Americans, the Brits, it's commandos, it's rolling gears. You know, doctrines in many cases, at least for the commanders, sort of good, but still it tends not to get sort of fully utilized, so there's a bit lacking there. For the Germans, it's Luftwaffe ground forces and Firesturm, both doctrines with a sort of, you know, yeah, for example, I mean, most people only go for this doctrine, for example, for the Fallschirmjäger, and Firesturm, no one really goes for it at the moment. So it's get Gartraff combined arms, and the other doctrine is actually quite at the moment escaping me. And the Wehrmacht gets Osttruppen and Jaeger Infantry sort of revamped there. So there's certainly a lot of things that could potentially be happening there. So that's a positive, interesting one there. Person maybe a bit too surprised with Ostrom. I still think it's reasonably a solid commander, but you know, we'll see what they pull off there. And that's just the start with. I mean, again, they'll probably try to get them up here by the end of the next week, so hopefully we should have something interesting there. Moving on though, demo charges are finally getting nerfed. They're basically adding a 3-second timer to them, so they'll just insta-wipe there. They'll probably still be good versus blobs, because people who blob are not good at unit management. They'll still get, you know, blah, dead. So demo charges will still be good versus those, but otherwise versus units will, you know, handle more, particularly, you know, versus gems. It's going to be, you know, less just, you know, one-click splat. So that's a big one, actually. That's a really big one. That's personally a change I have been looking forward to for quite some time. So that is really big. Moving onwards, Americans are sort of getting some slight changes here in the rear. Getting slightly nerfed for the volley fire there, since apparently they deemed it a bit too good quickly. The Jackson is now losing damage but gaining penetration instead, amongst other things. And on me for the captain loses the ability to buff the unit just now, sort of move faster and break suppression, but they don't get, you know, damage boost and all that. So some slight changes there to the captain's on me. That most people didn't use it for the damage buffs. The only one I know to use that was Dave, and maybe me occasionally when I remembered to use it. So there is that. Soviets are getting some slight changes as well. Conscripts getting slightly nerfed on some levels. Apparently they felt them getting a bit too utilitarian, so the upgrades being broken up again, though the Molotov upgrade is being made cheaper. And the Molotov itself, I think, is also being made cheaper. Oh no, actually being made slightly more expensive. Bit of a surprising turn of events, I feel, but we'll see what it ends up with that. I'm not entirely sure what to make of that, as we get the Tripwire Flare Mine is also getting quite the cooldown, which is also a bit of a surprise there. I'm not entirely sure about all of those. Mortar for the Surge now gets flare right away, and the field gun gets a decrease actually in the cost for the barrage abilities. Now goes from 60 to 35 minutes, and that's a sizable buff. Plus it costs less population. So all the field gun gets buffed, the mortar get buffed, but the console sort of gets slightly toned down. They'll still be pretty good. It's just sort of the abilities that get nerfed essentially. And then of course we move on to the bigger bits of this balance preview update. The Wehrmacht. That certainly sees some bigger changes there. The Panther now gains a buff to its machine gun, so it's basically now as good as the Overcommand Commander West ones in that regard, which, I mean, when you then sort of point in all the other changes, the Wehrmacht Panther might sort of be moving into a more sort of usable area. I mean, played it with myself, asked some friends as well, and they seem to think sort of the Panthers are in a better spot. I'm not entirely sure to call it good now, but it's definitely not bad either. It's actually kind of worth it now, and actually kind of worth to rush out now. So I think the Panthers sort of, if not in a really good spot, it's in an acceptable spot at the very least. It's an acceptable spot. We'll have to see. The Wehrmacht Panzer IV is also getting a slight buff. It now has slight more penetration. It costs slightly less fuel, so it's not now sort of one of the more expensive medium tanks to perform below the average of the most of the Allied medium tanks. So that's a good start. Oh yeah, the T-34-6 costs a bit more fuel now, while I remember it. Ostwind gets a buff. Basically now its projectiles do not get caught up in the terrain, meaning the Ostwind's going to be a lot more consistent, a lot more reliable, making the Ostwind a lot better. It does get some slight nerfs to its AoE, but overall considering it's going to hit things a lot more, that's going to be necessary. Also it's going to be way too good too quickly. So I mean, in that regard, the Wehrmacht certainly seeing some buffs, some more worth it. Grenadiers cost less population. The Pack 40 costs less population as well. Stu gets its target weak point slightly nerfed. On the other hand, machine gun gets made cheaper, and it gets some more range. So there's certainly some changes there to the Wehrmacht that should overall give more options and sort of more counters to Allied play. So, I mean, I'm not fully convinced they're going to fix all of the issues of the Wehrmacht late game, but it's certainly moving in a right direction compared to like the initial bits of the December balance period, which only seem to make it worse. At least now they sort of generally seem to be trying to improve it, which is good. And again, increased strategic diversity was one of the goals, which was sort of, not really there. I mean, now the Osman's sort of better, the Panther's better, Panther 4's better, Stug's kinda better, so, I'm liking it so far there. The bigger change, though, are with the Oberkommando West, where basically the Sturm Pioneers are made sort of faster to tech vet up. Some better efficiency slightly changed up as well. But they've, I think, become cheaper to reinforce and also a bit faster to reinforce. So overall, they sort of moving to make the Sturm Pioneers a bit more viable. Plus, the Panzertech costs less now going from 90 to 70 munitions. So Sturm Pioneers become more viable, which is good because they're nerfing the Volksgrenadiers, which is well, what they should have been doing ages ago. But basically, they lose a lot of the received accuracy bonuses. Some of the veterans in the high level sort of just gets nerfed a bit or taken away. And the incendiary grenade now has a fuse on it as well, like a second, but still there's a fuse. So it's no longer like a Molotov, now it's more like a regular grenade that just goes boom, and it is an incendiary grenade, so it makes sense. So that's basically sort of the some of the bigger changes. Then they're coming a lot more. Besides that, the looks gets nerfed. It is less accurate on the move, which is good. It's going to be less efficient at hunting down units. The Oberkommando West Panther 4 gets made cheaper to help make it stand up with the Panther 4, plus it's get more accurate. Some of its veterans is slightly lost, for example, loses range, which is the Oberkommando West Panther also does. But overall, I'm liking those changes as well. I mean, again, they're sort of then doing what they said they would, which is, again, increased strategic diversity. They're also making the Obersoldaten more accessible. They cost less now. That's pretty big as well. The upgrades cost a bit more, because they then move from 400 manpower to 340 manpower. Yeah, I'm willing to, live with that. They lose the ability to suppress. No, actually, though, again, it's an ability to suppress specifically. It's not just something you do always, so you have to sort of target specifically. I'm willing to live with that. So a lot of changes there to the Oberkommando West, which again will sort of make a lot of the other stuff viable. The Fighters Makers, in theory, get a slight buff there. Lose some of the veterans, but they're more harder to kill straight up. Plus, they can camouflage right away as well, which is also pretty neat. So in that regard, they are, again, increasing strategic diversity and making more Oberkommando West units viable. They might need to buff the MG34 or the flak after it, though, to fully make up for it. But overall, again, we are moving in a right direction. I feel again we're sort of moving where stuff makes a bit more sense for the Oberkommando, for the Wehrmacht. Again, we get strategic diversity. So again, and more importantly, we sort of break up the whole Volksgrenadier blob into look stuff. I mean, that's good as well. That was kind of one of the issues with the Oberkommando. It was really, really powerful, but if you went for anything but that, it was, really, really weak because you had to go. That was, kind of the sort of the weird state of the Oberkommando West. You had to go for it or you got punished. But if you did, it was just smooth sailing, and that's basically what they're sorting out now, which is good, really good. And again, there's also one thing I was really wondering, if they were trying to fix issues, why weren't they fixing that one? But there we are now. So that's pretty good there as well. So overall, a lot of changes there. Overall, a lot of changes, increasing that strategic diversity, making Wehrmacht late game a bit more viable, making Wehrmacht armor a bit more viable. Oberkommando West gets more options, and we fixed the big issue of Volksgrenadier spam into Luxus, which was basically sort of the thing I think that was really plaguing the meta game and just locking down a lot of strategic diversity. But of course, if the allies and didn't prepare for that, you could usually get steamrolled pretty hard. So that's really good. That is really, really good. We'll have to see, though, if it's going to be sufficient to sort of halt that with the looks there. Maybe they might have to apply a few more nerfs. We'll see. But overall, I'm liking this. This feels like a good direction. This feels like they're actually listening now and so, taking steps to, do what they're also trying to say they were doing, which is great. So hopefully we get more stuff of this, and I'm certainly looking forward now to the Commander revamps, and hopefully we get something good out of that as well. So this has been your Propagandacast news. It's delivered straight to you, the loyal and incredibly handsome viewer, I'm sure of. So thank you all. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe, like, share, and comment on it. And of course, a big thanks to my Patreon supporters, without which this episode was certainly not impossible. You're all wonderful, charming, and amazing people. This is Imperial Dane signing off, and see you all for another video. Cheers.